I've been carrying resentment around with me for the last 5 years because that's about when I left Cal Poly Pomona. Uh, I'd been sort of keeping everybody up to date about what was going on in my life and what was going on at Cal Poly, and then in a somewhat ignominious way, I left Cal Poly Pomona under a cloud. The chronology of me leaving is this. They did something that they told me that they wouldn't do. They promised me something, which was basically that any book that was removed from the library would have one last chance by being vetted by the faculty in the subject of that book. For instance, architecture design, which is my main concern. And then they decided that that was too cumbersome a process, and they were afraid that if they told faculty what books they were throwing away, the faculty might get upset, so they decided to do it in secret. That prompted me, well, basically to resign from Cal Poly, to quit. I even wrote a letter of resignation. At the same time I was writing that letter of resignation, I received a letter from the CSU saying that they were setting up a series of meetings to discuss my behavior with an eye towards censoring me and or firing me from Cal Poly Pomona. So I quit and I was fired. But then reality struck in, because when I started going through the process of leaving Cal Poly, they wouldn't let me quit. And basically what they said to me was that if I quit, instead of resigning and retiring, which is what they wanted me to do because that'd be no red flag flying, if I quit, it would be a year and a half before I would start receiving my pension. Well, how the fuck is anybody going to go a year and a half without any money? So I had no recourse except to sign a letter of resignation instead of, marking the form that I quit under protest, which is what I did. But because of this retirement thing, I had no choice but to leave Cal Poly and retire from Cal Poly, which I technically would do anyway. But then I found out later, in talking to the CalPERS people, that Cal Poly had absolutely nothing to do with me receiving my pension. And for them to even say that, and I actually tried to get up a little bit of fuss about that, but to tell you the truth, the whole thing boiled down to this. I just had to get away from Cal Poly before Cal Poly fucking killed me. They almost killed me, and I'll go into all of that because I'm of the opinion that it's because of them that I got the cancer, the stress and everything of years of fighting the system about throwing away books. But anyway, more to come. But that's it in a nutshell. They did something I didn't like, that they lied and said that they weren't going to do. I quit, wrote a letter of protest. I went through the process of trying to get my retirement through Cal Poly, and they told me that if I quit, it would be a year and a half before I could receive any of my pension, and they forced me to sign a letter of resignation, a letter of retirement. So that's how it went down, and I guess I'm going to sort of tell you the whole saga in more detail, but that's why. And and the most bitter thing about all of this is a few months later, the Cal Poly Pomona denied me emeritus status. I mean, they've only denied emeritus status to a faculty member for like rape or robbery in the past. I protested throwing away books and I was denied emeritus status. And that pisses me off more than anything, because I'll be frank with you, there wasn't a better librarian in the nation than me. I mean, well, that's a little bit haunty, but I was a fine librarian. I helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of students. And anyway, we'll get into all that a little bit later, but that's what I'm bitter about. And talking about Cal Poly Pomona, I guess what instigated this, I was talking to my buddy yesterday. He's from Tennessee, and that brought up a lot of stuff with me, but thinking about Cal Poly and how I was treated and how my faculty treated me and how the administration orchestrated all of this, including that little weasel of a dean they had at the time. And we won't even go into President Ortiz, who's just about as hypocritical a human being that ever lived. But anyway, I'll talk to you a little bit later and fill you all in more detail. Documents to come.